There, so I can take this 1 1/4 inch sleeve out. Never get rid of these, put them in your junk drawer, and you'll be able to use it in a future project. Remember, the junk drawers are getting more valuable every day.
Welcome to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. On this episode of Sam's Garage, the Lokar team upgrades the power steering system in Kevin's Jeep. Sam and Doug install the freshly repainted front and rear bumpers on the Saleen Mustang. Sam installs the cooling system components in the Chevy HEMI truck project. And then bolts up the new manual transmission to the HEMI engine. Kevin and Travis helped Sam install a new power steering system in the Jeep project. They've opted to remove the electric power steering and go with a heavy-duty hydraulic system. The new system will make sure that the Jeep can handle turning those huge 43-inch tires.
This week, Travis and Kevin and I are going to relieve the factory power steering system because it's working way over time trying to turn those 43s, right?
Yes, yeah, that electric is just not happy.
Yeah, electric over hydraulic in this case.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to be going back with the PSC kit.
Right, they've got a couple things going on here. One is this very big upgraded steering box. That's going to give us the biggest relief right now. When we get the 60 in there, we've actually got a hydraulic assist ram as well. So this is ported to do both.
Awesome. That's going to make a big difference for trying to turn those 43s.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get everything installed.
Sometimes it's easier just to move something out of your way. Just take it off, set it aside. That was 4 bolts and a couple of snap plugs, and we don't have to work around it. You know,
exactly.
We're just trying to mount a cooler, and now we have full access. So.
Yep. We just have to remember that wherever we put that cooler, that the sway bar doesn't have to go back.
Right.
I tell everyone why you went to complete hydraulic with everything bigger.
How do you mean?
Well, the 43-inch tires would overcome the electric hydraulic.
Sure. You'll rip the steering box off the frame if
Yeah.
you use the factory one. The power steering with the electric, it just doesn't have enough power to feed everything.
Yep.
You know? We've put the bigger box in there, and in the future, when we put the Dana 60 in there, we're going to have that hydraulic assist ram in there. It's really going to help move these tires around, but I didn't want to waste our time putting them on the Dana 44.
And the box has the inlet and outlet to control the ram.
It does. So all we got to do is put the hoses on there, run them down to the ram once we mount it, be good to go.
Now, we did not put the sway bar back on because we're going to be putting new sway bars on it next week, so there's no reason to put them back on and do double the work. And don't forget, guys, when you're doing this kind of work, you came up with this, don't let the front axle hang because the sway bar holds the front axle up, and these things, the front drive shaft is actually touching the cross member, so you don't want to damage the Jeep and cause a big problem. Strap it up like we did. And don't forget, when you guys are bleeding your system, do it dry, fill up the reservoir, try to get as much fluid in there going left to right before you crank it so you don't crank it dry. And so far we have no leaks and hopefully it'll stay that way.
That's right. this is a really nice kit. They gave us the cooler, the lines, everything was cut to fit, made. I mean, you just bolt it in. I mean,
Yeah, and that cooler would go in the place of the sway bar, but it fits.
it fits with the sway bar, but since we're changing the sway bar anyway, it's just a nice touch.
We just got done with the new power steering system. We went from the electric over hydraulic to a standard hydraulic like you would see in a JK.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NH Oil Undercoating. Sam and Doug reinstalled the front and rear bumpers on the Saleen Mustang. Once the bumpers are reinstalled, this Saleen Mustang is really starting to shine.
Well guys, this is the week that we take the Saleen and we make it really good looking by adding the front and rear bumper back onto the car. We went ahead and had Buddy from State Collision repaint the front and rear fascia because they needed it. And then we had Doug redo the fabric on the rear bumper.
Yeah, and it really came out nice. We got real fortunate. We found some material that was going to work really well. We got everything all glued in, taped in, glued in. It looks great. Looking on the outside, it looks all factory.
And you're probably thinking, man, that's pretty low tech on the rear bumper. We did it exactly the way Saleen did it. And we had Buddy fix the bow in the bumper and fill in the holes for the license plate.
Fantastic.
Looks good.
Yeah, it does. When you're putting the front bumper on, just make sure you really take your time. It goes ahead and attaches to the metal on the top. It's only held by 8 screws onto it. You'd think there'd be a lot more, but there isn't on it because it really doesn't weigh a lot, so it's not an issue at all. Then you just come on to the back, and it's the same thing on the inner skirts to be able to get everything lined up. Just take your time. You'll notice everything, and it'll go right together for you.
Especially when you're doing the screws right here into the paint of the bumper, you don't want to go too tight because then you may actually take the paint off the bumper. Just kind of go snug. And doesn't that look much better, the front end?
Oh, it looks great.
This is the perfect time to check your bulbs and change them. And don't forget to have a visual memory so you can put them all back in their place. And when you go to do your indicators and your brakes in reverse, you don't look like, you know. We've talked about before, you want to take your time and do everything right and slow. And we noticed, because this is urethane, not fiberglass, it changes shape when it comes off the car depending on how long it's at the body shop for. So sometimes you can lay it out in the sun and let it, you know, get pliable.
Yeah.
But in this case, everything went fine. We had to fight a little bit. I had to drill 2 new holes because on the right side, it moved.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Sam, is when you're putting this on, make sure you have plenty.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, you know, even the both of us, it was a struggle. Try to do it by yourself. It's going to be really, really difficult. 2 people, you can do it. 3's even better because everything moves on this thing. And you're right. If you put it in the sun, let it heat up. Otherwise, you're just going to fight it.
And you're going to break it, you're going to chip the paint,
right.
cause a big problem. Now we're going to put all the liners for the trunk back inside. Now if you guys have a car that actually has all the liners in the trunk and it's an old school car, be very careful, take good care with those things because you can't find any of this stuff anymore. And if you could, it's a premium for price. And we went ahead and changed out the struts. These guys are inexpensive. You can find them online. You can find them on your local parts store. Very easy to install. Takes 5 minutes and they're inexpensive. So save yourself some grief and put yourself some new shocks. If it falls once, it's gonna fall again and again. So just do it the first time it hits you in the head. Well, Doug, what do you think?
About what?
About the bumper.
Oh, it looks great.
What about the whole rear fascia?
You know, once again, Sam, it was a little bit of work, but really came out beautiful. You know, it needed a little extra paint. The colors match really well. Looks really great.
Not bad. Buddy did a good job. And you know what? That little low-tech deal on the inside of the bumper looks really high-tech from the outside, doesn't it?
It does, you know. And who would have thought we were able to find the material, get it all cut, get it in there, and it just looks fantastic.
All right, so when you guys get your bumpers painted or any other body panel on the vehicle painted, make sure to give it some time to cure before you apply wax to it. Now next week, what Doug and I are going to do is go ahead and detail the car so that we can complement all the aesthetics that we added to the car.
Once everything's polished, everything's going to look absolutely fabulous.
Any vehicle that's worth owning is worth protecting. NHOU Boss Wax is a standalone, permanent, fast-curing, durable, heavy-duty rust protectant, professionally applied to the undercarriage of new vehicles to provide lifetime protection against corrosion. When applied by an NHOU authorized applicator, Boss Wax is backed by a nationwide transferable warranty. Boss Wax is semi-self-healing, so minor scratches close on their own. When you have your new vehicle protected with NHOU's Boss Wax at an authorized applicator, it'll be reported to Carfax and become part of your vehicle's permanent record. Every Boss Wax undercoating is completely customizable, so you can choose what to coat and what not to coat, so you can leave anything uncoated like shocks. Your authorized applicator provides you with a warranty folder that stays with the vehicle even if you sell it.
Welcome back to more Sam's Garage, presented by NHOU. Sam starts the next phase of the Brothers Chevy HEMI truck project by installing the cooling system, which consists of the radiator plus the upper and lower radiator hoses.
Continuing on this week with our Brothers Chevy HEMI project. Last week we got the fuel injection done. This week we're going to tackle the cooling system. Now you can go to Brothers Truck Parts or even Holley.com and you can punch in your truck, look at the cooling system. They got radiators, they got fan shrouds, fan, even the wiring kit. I happen to have a cold case kit here, very similar to the Brothers deal. We're going to be using it along with an electric fan. The next step to our cooling system project, which is our Summit Racing stainless steel hose kit. I went black to match the theme. Don't worry, we're gonna get the headlights done by Miller and the centerpiece on the windshield, just to keep everything uniform. Just don't have time for it right now. I have got a 1 7/4 output on the thermostat housing to go to the upper radiator hose. So I went to Summit, got myself a union. It's got 1.75 on one side, 1.25 on the other. It fits in their hose perfectly. Then for the bottom, same thing. I've got myself the two pieces. We're going to transition from the 2-inch on the bottom of the radiator hose and the 2-inch on the lower radiator hose coming out of the water pump. We're going to transition down to a 1.5, and then we'll be able to use the Summit Racing hose for the bottom as well. So I ordered the wrong size for the bottom. It's only 11 inches. I need at least a 24-inch, but I had this one in stock. It's the lower hose. You cannot see it. Don't stop a project just for this. If it was a concourse car, cool. If it was a show car, you're going for trophies, cool. If it's a driver and it's your own, who cares? Here we go. I've got a reducer coming from a 2-inch to a 1.5. I got a sleeve inside that, nice and tight. This one has been reduced from a 2-inch to a 1.75. Over here is a 1.5. This sleeve is all the way here. It butts up to the 1.75 sleeve in here. I've got my radiator clamp down here at the edge of the 2-inch hose, making it nice and reliable. I'm not gonna cut that off because in the future, if something happens, I can always trim that. I'm gonna leave that. It's for me to see down here. I'm not doing any shows, okay? I need to move the radiator back towards the core support, then tack it in place. I'm gonna have Julie. She's got my Miller jacket on for protection. The core support is not bolted in down here. I'm gonna quickly make a bracket from here, from the frame, both sides, weld it onto the core support. That way you can still remove it from the truck itself and pull the whole core support out if you need to. Now we're gonna be installing the relay for our electric fan. Now this relay kit comes with a thermostatic ground that can complete the circuit for the relay itself. Because on the relay, don't forget, you got 4 legs. This happens to be a 4-leg relay. We've got the heavy wire going to the component. We have number 30 coming from the battery. Then we got the power and ground that's going to close the circuit for the relay itself. Doesn't matter which one you use as power and which one you use as ground. So we're not going to use this because I've got the Holley Sniper controlling it along with the sub harness for the Sniper. So first thing I'm going to do is find a location somewhere accessible, easy, that I can get to the relay, and it's going to be right there. Then I'm going to use that point as my ground for both the relay and the fan itself. Then I'm going to run a power all the way to the alternator or my fuse block for the number 30, and then I have a switch 12 volts because I don't want it on all the time. I'm going to use the alternator wire that's coming out of the painless wire harness as my switched power. The white wire is going to go on the 10-pin Holley input-output connector for the Super Sniper EFI. That way it's going to control the fans. I am going to be going to Brothers Truck Parts and getting me an AC unit for this car, or truck should I say. Now we got the radiator installed, upper and lower coolant hoses are done. The relay is installed, circuit's done, everything function tests and works properly. When we come back from the break, we're going to attack the transmission. At first, last season, I put an automatic in it, but I decided I want to go 5-speed. So I got an American Powertrain TKX 5-speed for it. We're going to install that. Then we get to install the starter and start to fire this thing up.
Welcome back to Sam's Garage, presented by NHOU. Sam shifts gears and installs the new manual transmission from American Powertrain on the Chevy HEMI truck project. In addition, Sam's installing a new clutch and flywheel that's designed to work with the transmission and handle all the power this HEMI engine will be cranking out.
Welcome back. We just got done with the cooling system, and now I got my assistant and wife, Julie, here. She's gonna help me put the transmission in. I went to American Powertrain and got a TKX 5-speed. If you guys remember last year, we had an automatic in this thing, and we put a Boss Hog torque converter in it. But this year, I want to shift gears, so I went manual again, because you know how much I love manuals, right? I've got a TKX 5-speed. We got everything from Matt to put this kit in, so let's get started installing it. So the first step in this process is going to be to make sure whether you have an automatic engine or a manual engine, because you're going to have a pilot bearing or not have a pilot bearing. In our case, it's automatic. We know this, so we're going to have to put a pilot bearing in. American Powertrain gives you 2 options. This one is not going to fit for us. So sometimes technicians think it's not good to pound on a harmonic balancer that's pressed on due to the thrust bearings. Well, it's no different than pounding in the pilot bearing to the back of the crankshaft. Same thing, same impact, same potential damage. So as long as the motor is built right, you're not banging too hard. At the end, when it's seated, you should be okay. The next step is going to be for us to put our flywheel in. So I'm going to put some thread lock on these flywheel bolts. In the kit, American Powertrain gives you this set in a holly bag. That is the center of the transmission, whatever one you're using, with the Lakewood bell housing. Now, when you're picking these 3, you want to pick the one that's going to go over this piece with ease and fit into the bell housing. Then you take it and you want to make sure that it fits in the bell housing as well where the groove is. And once you're confirmed with both pieces, you can go ahead and put it on and put the transmission in. I recommend you put it on the transmission first so that you're not fighting the bell housing. This will kind of center up your transmission for you. You want to always install lube. It goes into the pilot bearing. Even though there's lube in there, you want to put a little bit of lube on the splines. You never want to leave too much residue because you don't want it to bleed. You want to use synthetic grease. And this will allow the disc to float freely on the shaft. Also, don't forget the American Powertrain hydraulic has an O-ring in there. This guy rides back and forth on this shaft. Very important that you lube up the shaft. Don't just lube up the O-ring, because the O-ring only has a little bit of a distance of the surface. We're going to take a measurement because we have to make sure we have an air gap between the throb bearing surface itself and the teeth on the pressure plate. You want about 10 to 20 thousandths. Take our measuring tape. We're going to go to the teeth of the bell housing. I've got a nice thin metal ruler as a flat edge. We're going to measure to the surface of this bell housing from the teeth. And we're going to get exactly 10 centimeters or 3 15/16 inches. Then we're going to come over to the transmission. We're going to measure from this point to the surface here. And we want to go smaller than 15/16, maybe 7/8. So what we're going to do is take our shim pack that comes with the kit. We're going to put these shims behind it. We're going to measure that distance. Ruler up against the flat edge. And we had 10 centimeters from the bell housing. This one we have 9 3/4 centimeters. We're exactly there. So luckily we're able to use every shim pack, and we should have everything we need in place here. This is your bleeder line. You want to make sure it's tight. We're going to go ahead and install the hydraulic line. We're going to verify this because there's a window in the bell housing. You can clearly see the distance between the teeth and the throb bearing. If it's too excessive, pull everything out, put more shims in it. If it's touching too tight, pull shims out of it. You guys see me do this 1,000 times. The transmission goes in first, this goes in through the window onto the shaft, and we sandwich everything together. This is the hard part. This is the part where Julie's gonna have a lot of fun. That wasn't too bad, was it?
No, it really well.
Especially the mechanical portion with the transmission, the bell housing, and all that went really well. Yeah. The hard part was the pedal, and that shifter really kicked my butt, but it's done.
Be sure to check out Sam's Garage on these other media platforms. Send us questions and feedback to info@samsgaragetv.com. The steering on Kevin's Jeep is now able to handle those larger tires. Doug's Saleen Mustang has freshly repainted front and rear bumpers installed. Sam installed the cooling system in the Brothers Chevy HEMI truck project, and then wrapped things up by installing the new manual transmission, clutch, and flywheel.